Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Endeavor Deep Sea from Burnt Island Games. Endeavor Deep Sea is the spiritual successor to Endeavor Age of Sail, also from Burnt Island Games and Grand Gamers Guild, and this is a tableau building game across 6 rounds of play as you gather divers, various personalities, explore the oceans, and more, and we'll get into this in a second, but before we do, everything you see here, all rules, components, and all that, this prototype is subject to change. That's particularly relevant with Burnt Island Games, as their Kickstarter production, their GameFound production, this is on GameFound by the way, I'll have a link to that down below, their production is off the chart, especially if you get the deluxe version, so everything you see here, very much prototypes and subject to change. With that said, how do you play this game? Now, there is a solo co-op mode, but we'll talk about that later, briefly, but as far as the main crux of the game, the main competitive version of the game, is going to be you and other players diving into this game, trying to acquire as many points as possible through a variety of sources, a big part of which is going to be this impact grid over here, that you're going to be slowly putting down various cubes onto the grid to get in-game bonuses, and also slowly, eventually, as you spread across the grid, getting points as well. You can be trying to be mindful of that. These scenarios are going to have scoring as well on those, because these scenarios, there's going to be a bunch of them in the game. Each of them give you slightly different setup, slightly different things to go for and vie for, and an entirely different impact grid to engage with as you go through it, and they're all going to drive a lot of the point decisions you make in the game. But then again, so will how far you advance on these tableau tracks over here, as well as some of the level 3 characters over here as you acquire them will give you additional point scoring in the game. As far as the core sequence of play across these 6 rounds, basically you're going to follow your own player board. So you can take a look at your player board over here, which first says take a diver. Now you're going to have 4 tracks that are going to affect you in different ways, but let's start with the first track. The first track, in addition to the fact that they're all worth points as you move higher up, the first track determines which column you can take these characters from. Right now I can only take from the first column. I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's say, this one. I like going diving early on. It's a fun way of getting extra tokens. So we're going to grab this token over here. We're going to put it into our grid over here. So we have this over here. We now acquire that. We go to the second step, which is where we add discs. Again, we're only level 1, so we're going to add 1 disc to our supply. We've just added a disc. This is going to be one of the resources you're trying to be mindful of and utilizing as you go through the game. So we're going to add that because we have this here. Had we have this over here, we were taking 4 discs instead. Then from there, we're going to go to the next track, which is where we recall discs. Right now, we only recall discs, and that's going to be mindful. You can be mindful of that for 2 reasons. First of all, is it's effectively income. By taking a disc back, you now have a disc, but more importantly, it also frees up your characters. If I put 2 discs down on these characters and I only have my disc reclamation at 1, the next round I'll only be able to activate one of these 2 characters because the other one is blocked. So moving that up is both going to unlock characters as you have them, but also it's going to be giving you more discs back as well. So it's effectively income and then some. And then lastly, we have over here this last track, which we don't actually have tied to a step right now. This last track is going to affect movement on the board. We'll come to that soon. So again, going through the steps, you take a new person, you add new discs, you reclaim discs, and then you start taking actions one at a time, primarily by putting discs onto your characters as you go through the game, possibly exclusively by putting discs onto your characters. So that's the then it's my turn. I'm going to go ahead and take an action, and there are 5 actions, all of which your team leader has printed on it. Again, prototype over here, I don't believe that's the final art, but not confident. I'm just looking at the other art over here, which is very different. But either way, over here, you're going to be going ahead and taking one of these 5 actions. Your team leader is basically wild, whereas other characters are going to give you additional, additional differences to them. In fact, it's worth noting over here, when I took this reef diver over here, in addition to giving me a specific diver action, it's going to let me move 1 up that track because of that symbol. You want to be mindful of those symbols because it's going to move you up the track, and additionally later when we upgrade it, we're going to get more flexibility in the action, one of 2 different actions, and again it's going to move us up that track. But we're not upgrading it yet, so back to over here, we're going to go to our team leader and let's go through the actions one at a time from left to right. The first action is navigation around the board. That's where you're going to take your little ship over here, you're going to move it to a new zone, and you can move it a distance and depth equal to how far you are on this track. So right now I can only move it a distance of 1 and a depth of 1. As I have it higher up over here, you'll have the opportunity to be able to move it a distance of 3 and a depth of 3, which is why you want to move this up over here. But additionally, as you cross these 2 subs, you're going to add new subs to the board, which is another reason to try to grow that, so you have more presence on the map as it expands. The map is eventually going to expand to as much as a 5x5 grid, and that's a lot of depth. Obviously, this board situation the way I have it set up right now wouldn't accommodate that, but I'd have this set up very differently if not for the video. But you'd have up to a 5x5 slowly moving down and across. That's these 5 piles of cards you're drawing from. So again, first action is movement. When you move, you can go ahead and move. I can't move to depth 2 right now, so I'm just going to move to the left over here, to the right, and I'm going to go ahead and take the arrival bonus, which is going to be 1 research, and move my research up the track. These areas here show the arrival bonuses, and they'll give you different reasons why you want to move there, but also they allow you to engage with new spaces. Now, before the next action we have over here is sonar. This owner action is relevant to these areas. You can see them here, 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 and here, and those allow you to take various grids. I'm going to go ahead and take this owner action, placing a cube on my leader, but also placing a disc, a disc on my leader, also placing a disc here, which says I can go ahead and do a dive at a distance of 1 or 2. I don't want to go across, I want to go down right now, so I'm going to draw 2 from the level 2 area. Look at them, and I'm going to go ahead and put this into play. And that's going to do a few things for me. First of all, it's going to give me this discovery bonus, which means I move up this track. Next round I can start researching level 2 people, and then, or acquiring level 2 people, and it's going to move you up over here because of these bonuses here. And now, you're also choosing based on the discovery bonuses, as well as what things that tile is going to let you do and how that fits into your strategy. That's going to be the second action. The third action is diving. In general, actions will only be taken where you have your ship, so we're going to temporarily move our ship back there. The diving action is going to allow you to pull one of these tokens off, which can give you either research or often additional icons or actions. And I'm going to go ahead and store this here. You can store 1 token at a time. After that, you have to consume it. And in this case, I think I want the research, but until I'm ready to spend it, I'm happy to hold on to it. Obviously, if I dive again, I'll be spending one of those tokens first before going into it. The third action is going to be taking actions, a little, what's it called? I can't recall they're called, I can't recall, there's a term for them, but the other actions, let's see if we could find one over here. Not over here, not over here. I just want to find one of these actions to show you. We have over here, nope, not over there, not, here we go. Conservation actions, I think they're called. So conservation actions over here are going to be these little turtle icons where you can go ahead and spend research in order to put a disc down. Let's pretend we have this tile in play over here, just so we can go through that. If we have this tile in play, we can go ahead and spend 2 research. Let's cash in my token for 4 DNA, and let's move up move up 4 research. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what? I want to take a conservation action. I'm going to put a cube down on this token, and that's going to give me 1 on the green track, cost me 2 research, but also I've created a bunch of possible links. You see, as other players put their tokens down over here, or even myself, if I put another token down over here, then I will get not just what's underneath the token, but also the link. But more importantly, if someone else places a token here, then both of us will get the link. And so these tiles often create strings of where you kind of want to work with other players, because you'll both benefit as you place things down. Obviously, in a 2-player game that's more directly head-to-head, this works best as a 3 or 4-player experience in terms of giving you that incentive to try to work towards things together, because even though you're helping the other player, the other 2 players are not being helped, and it's still always in your best interest to build things out and to work together when you have a chance. And then the last action is going to be a research action over here. This research action is going to allow you to gather these cards, which are going to cost you the research points. You have to be mindful of your research points again for that, and you have to be mindful of where you're going. So for example, I can take that action by going over here, which means I can take a yellow card, which means I can take one of these 2 cards over here, and then with those cards I get an immediate effect, which is often going to be upgrading one of your people. So for example, let's say I take this card, I'll pay in 3 research, 1, 2, 3, I'll go ahead and flip my person, which means I'm going to be moving up this track as well and making a better action availability, and then one time per round when I upgrade a person, I get to move up this track, which gives me a further incentive to either build out your tableau or possibly get one-time benefits as we replace the card from the deck. And those are going to be the 5 core actions you take in the game. Moving around the board, doing sonar actions so you can discover the board more, getting discovery bonuses, taking diving actions which will give you those tiles which you can trade in for other actions and or research points, using conservation actions to get your discs down in various spots, getting bonuses as well as possibly, well, a variety of things you'll get, plus creating possible link chains, and then lastly going ahead and doing discovery actions where you can gather these various cards, increasing and improving your tableau. You're doing all that, which is slowly going to be constantly increasing how you are on these tracks and where you move. As you go, you're also going to be unlocking the ability to slowly put cubes down onto these impact grids, which is going to give you, again, more ongoing bonuses that further move you up the track, while also getting you eventually points as well as bonuses in those things, getting 2 points for every orange, 1 point for every yellow, and every map slightly different in terms of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to spread, although I will say you have to be connected. You can't just magically make up little distances over there, and so you're trying to be mindful of that. You're also trying to be mindful of these specific goals you go through, because those are going to give you points as well, and so the combination of all these factors of how you're getting points, your tableau, the points, the impact grid, the various level 5 professionals you have, you see as you go through this grid over here, there's 5 of the level 1s, so there's plenty of those. There's 4 of the level 2s, there's 3 of the level 3s, there's 2 of the level 4s, and then there's only 1 of each level 5, and those are variable. There's different ones you'll have in every game, which means you really have to try to choose what you're trying to go for in this game as you build out your tableau. And that's basically how you play Endeavor at Deep Sea. There are slight differences when when you dive into a co-op or solo, usually giving you challenges you're going for. You'll see that even on the grid over here, telling you how many points you have to get, what specific goals you have to achieve, and how many of them in order to get as many points as possible, in order to like accomplish the challenges. So it takes the same core system, but rather than working at odds with each other, you're working together to specifically get certain things done and score a certain number of points as you go through it in the solo or co-op mode. And with that, let's dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. Overall, this is a very easy game to dive into. The rulebook is not that long, and there's not a lot of complexity to it. Some cards will require some, clarification on them in terms of the iconography, stuff like that. But for the most part, this is a fairly simple game to go through. There's a 4-step procedure, there's 6 rounds of play, there's 5 core actions, and going through that, it's a very clean system that works very well. As far as game time, you're probably looking at around 60 to 90 minutes, depending on player count. I can see it drifting to 2 hours, maybe for a first game or two, but reliably closer to the 60 to 90 minute range. 60 if you're doing things quickly, and I'd say 90 is a standard game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, there's a lot of things to like here, but ultimately the main thing is the tableau building and chaining is incredibly rewarding as you go through the game. Every single round you're adding to how much you get done. So even though it's only 6 rounds of play, in the first round you do like 2 actions. In the next round you're doing 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. It has a progression as you go through it. A progression similar to like games like Feast Mode, and we have more workers every round. You have more people every single round, and those all give you actions. And as you move higher up the chain, you're going to unlock people that even give you, double actions over here. This person gives you 2 actions with 1 disc, and so you're trying to be mindful of trying to get those cards and get those bonuses and figure out what your power ramp is going to be in the game. Do you want to power a ramp through the characters so you can get the highest level ones as fast as possible and take as much advantage of them as possible as quickly? Or alternatively, if you get to level 5 over here, this particular person gives you 3 movement actions with a single placement thing, which is incredibly huge, but you'll have to try very hard in order to get your hands on that before the end of round 3, which means if you get it at the end of round 3, you have 3 rounds of play. That'd be awesome, but that would be very hard. I think round 4 or 5 is even round 4 is ambitious. Round 5 and 6 is usually where you most likely will get your hands in it, which just means you can't get as much done in the game. You have to prioritize just what you're trying to move up and how you're trying to power ramp in this game, because if you get discs into your supply, you can do a lot more, but if you don't reclaim discs, that doesn't really help you either, because you need to free up those actions. But also moving your sub around the board is going to be hugely impactful. Everything in this game is going to be impactful and necessary for one element of how you build out your tableau, and the combination of everything chains off one another, because as you gather more experts, you can do better actions. As you have more discs, you can do more. As you move on to the impact grid, you're in turn getting bonuses to move up this ramp over here. As you unlock new characters, you're getting the bonuses there and using them to flip and upgrade more characters and get one-time or ongoing bonuses. As you move around the board, you have exploration bonuses, you have sonar bonuses, you have everything is just giving you more icons and more bonuses. It's how you chain them all together that's going to give you that degree of challenge over it. And it mixes that with a small degree of area control. Not so much that it's annoying, but just enough that you have to be mindful as players vie for control over different zoner spaces. As you have those conservation spots on the grid that slowly get filled up as players are trying to figure out who can get into those bonuses faster so that they can benefit from, placing a disc and getting 2 impact grid bonuses right off the bat. There's just enough area control here to be impactful, to drive your decisions, while not being the kind of area control that might be off-putting to those who want a low conflict game. This is a low conflict game with area control kind of abstracted onto the actions as you go through it. And then working with others is beneficial, and I like that. And I don't just mean the solo or co-op, in which it's necessary, but rather I mean that as you go through these there's a lot. The further down you go into the ocean, the more spots you'll have that involve chaining and helping each other as you go through it. Not just conservation points, but other elements as well. And I like the sense of cooperation it builds, because if you don't want to work with others, fine, don't. But you'll find that you lose out, and those who work together will benefit, and that lends itself not just to the theme of the game, but to the enjoyment of the gameplay. It's kind of like the trading of Catan, but without the actual trading, and more with literally just placing your discs down and taking the actions and rewards together with the other players. The variety of the experience is going to be present as well, both in terms of the endgame cards that you have over there, but also in terms of the way these tiles are going to come out and the way it's going to drive the type of actions you take, and also the scenarios you have, the mission maps that are going to give you different scoring, different impact grids, different starting setup, and different things to be mindful as you go through the game, and of course the cards that come out as well. Overall, there's a decent variety to the way this experience will play out game to game, giving you a fun little challenge of just stuff happening that drives different decision making within the same core structure and framework. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, is I'm not yet a huge fan of the impact grid. I don't mind it, but I find that some areas of it I like more than others. I like the fact that there's different setup and different scoring. I like that a lot. That really drives different decision making. I have found so far, and keep in mind this is a prototype and I've only had access to these first 2 grids over here, that's all we have, but I found the impact grid doesn't feel like there's a ton of decision making around this compared with the areas of the game that do have a lot more decision making. The impact grid kind of feels like place a token out and just do it. Now it works with the engine. As far as how everything changed together, it still works. works. But as far as the variety of how one game is going to be different than the next, I'm not yet convinced. I've seen, to be very clear, I've seen 1 or 2 pictures of advanced missions out there, but I haven't played with them and engaged with them yet. I've only been able to play with the first mission 1 and 2, so it's more of a hesitancy rather than an opinion. I haven't yet seen the depth of variety the Impact Grid will totally provide over the grid itself. I like, and scoring and setup and all that, very different, but the grid itself, I still haven't seen exactly how far that will branch out. I'm intrigued to see it, but I'm still not 100% sold on that just yet. Additionally, I want more things in the game, and I don't know what their plans are. This is a prototype. I don't know what the final game is going to look like, but I want more experts. This is something I always had with Endeavor Age of Sail as well, and they have it with the expansion, but I want more than just what's in here. I want variety to this grid as well. I want more than the tiles they currently have over here as far as the ways to explore. Right now, I believe they have one where I think they have 6 of each type, which means you're going to, as you go through the grid, you're going to see most of the same stuff in every single game. I want more variety and more cleverness so that the game experience that already is variable feels even more variable and even more different, and a real sense of exploration and a real sense that every game to game is not just mildly different but vastly different as far as what you engage with. Obviously there's a balance in play, because the more different you make it, the more risk you run that things won't balance out well and nicely, but I don't know, I just want that sense of discovery. The sense of discovery is already present. I want to see it magnified even further. So there's not a lot over here that I don't like, but I just want that, the sense of variety and differences they already have built in, I want even more of that in the final game. And again, prototype review, make sure to check out the campaign page to see what's actually there. I'm very intrigued to as far as what the actual end result looks like. Right now the biggest thing is I like what they have, and I just want to see more of that. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the iconography, not a huge issue, but there certainly is iconography in the game, and some of it is not immediately clear. If we go through some of the, again, the later zones over here, you're going to have, I don't know, you're going to have different iconography on the grid that you often have to reference in the rulebook to see what any individual section means. These ones are actually pretty clear, but there are some sections as you go through them, what do each of these things mean? You have to reference different areas, different bonus things going on. Not hugely annoying, but definitely something you have to look into. And then secondly is you do need to balance things to an extent as you go through this game. I mentioned you can try to choose which pathway you go up on this grid. You have these different things you can lean into, but if you don't balance in some way, your game is going to break. If you go high on, how advanced your experts can be, well, that's great, but if your engine is cluttered and can't move, then that will only help you so much, and that's true of any of these areas. In some way, in some form, you have to put energy and attention into everything. You can choose to specialize in a grid, but if you just ignore the other grids, you will fall apart and not win. As far as final thoughts on Endeavor Deep Sea, I overall really like this game. Now, I like the original game too. Endeavor Age of Sail was a game I very much enjoyed. Similarly, I had complaints or things I want to see differently about them, and when I saw Endeavor Deep Sea, I was not sold at first. This evolving map situation they have over here compared with the map of Endeavor Age of Sail, I looked at the original map and I just thought it looked like a better game system. I just like the connection points there felt like a cohesive system, and this felt like a bunch of disparate elements, and it doesn't feel like that when you play that. When you play the game, it all works together. This game was one that I don't get me wrong, I was interested in no matter what, because I like Endeavor Age of Sail, but I expected to dive into this one, no pun intended, I expected to dive into this one and then not like it as much as I enjoyed the original, and I like it arguably more. I say arguably only because I like to have more time with the games and I want to see the final product, but where it stands right now is I'm pretty sure this will replace the original for me. I'm not 100% confident, make sure to check back in a year or so when the game delivers, as I'm sure I'll be doing a comparison video of the two games, but for right now, this takes the elements that are present in Endeavor Age of Sail, and to me, it mostly makes them better. It gives you a more interesting inner element while keeping all the tableau building and board building that was present in the original, and giving you just a better center to focus on with more variability and engagement to the experience. Overall, I'm really enjoying this one. It's a 4.5 out of 5. It's a tried and true system applied with a new fresh coat of paint and a system that works well within the new structure that they've built for it. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Endeavor Age of Sail. Obviously, if you don't want to wait around for this game and you want to hunt down a copy of Endeavor Age of Sail, it's still an excellent game that I really recommend and think is just a fun system that is both easy to dive into as well as appealing in what it presents, as well as additionally a Lost Ruins of Arnak. To me, I don't know exactly what it is about them, but I get a very similar gaming sense when I dive into Lost Ruins of Arnak or when I dive into this system. They both feel like they have a nice degree of progression as far as what you're trying to build, how everything interlocks, and how you focus on different areas while all tying into just a rewarding, accessible Eurogame puzzle. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I'll have a link to the campaign page down below, and as always, I hope you have a good one.